Thanks for tuning in to Hobbs and Horror Movie Review Podcast.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Hobbs and Horror. I'm Eric.
Butcher Baker.
I'm Amos.
I don't know where the Amos comes from.
Famous anus cookies.
Yeah, famous Amos and Andy cookies.
And we're back with part 2 of the Gary Busey saga.
Yeah.
With Ginger Dead Man ranking in at a 3.4 IMDb rating.
So wrong.
And I'm going to stop you right there. Every time someone says the title of this movie that I've heard, we all say it wrong.
Do we?
Yeah. We say it the Ginger Dead Man as if it's like a zombie guy with like a zombie with red hair, soulless, whatever.
Yeah, I say Ginger Dead Man.
Yeah, but it's Ginger Dead Man.
No.
Right?
I mean, that's how it's written. You're right. You are correct.
But no one says it that way.
Yeah.
It just doesn't sound right.
Yeah, it's a dead.
You got to
Ginger
emphasize the dead part.
Yeah.
Ginger Dead Man.
Yeah.
Not Ginger Dead Man. Say Ginger
All right,
Dead
so we
Man.
have a 20.
Nobody understands you.
We're officially
Right.
20 minutes into the podcast, and we're still talking about how to properly say the name of the movie.
Yeah.
So, Gavin, kick it off with what this was about.
All right, so the majority of the movie is the credits listing everybody who was involved in the movie
And the credits afterwards.
But ignoring that part, that crucial piece of the movie, we have Gary's back, and he is some kind of ruthless psychopath. I don't think it's really explained exactly what his deal is, and he is robbing a diner, but apparently he's not really there to rob the diner. He also wants to kill the people in the diner. So he kills the people in the diner, except one. And so then we flash forward. He is executed, and the young lady who survived the diner experience now works at a bakery. Maybe she did before. I don't know. Whatever. And Gary's evil witch mother brings his cremated remains to the bakery and marks it as gingerbread seasoning. And through some incredibly bizarre twist of luck and fate, the ashes mixed with blood and a surge of electricity, an evil gingerbread man is baked with the spirit of the killer. So now they must face him again, but this time as a cookie.
Yeah. And I still think like it'd be an interesting alternative version of this movie where instead of making cookies, they were just making loaves of bread. Yeah. And he just ended up as a killer loaf of bread.
Yeah.
Which I don't know how that would work.
I'm sure that version has been made. So
yeah.
I want to say right after that, I want to say the one nice thing I'm going to say.
Okay.
I don't think the idea of this movie is terrible.
It's just child's play.
Yeah. I don't think the idea is terrible. I think, despite the fact it's absolutely stupid, it makes no sense, I think if it had been done by the right person, they could have made this an entertaining movie. So I think the idea is okay.
Yeah.
But everything after that is terrible.
Yeah. I mean, this movie, like, it clearly rips off child's play.
Yeah.
At the beginning, the serial killer, they're chasing after the serial killer, and he gets killed or whatever. They execute him. In child's play, he gets shot down in a toy store, and then he does his little voodoo ritual and whatever.
Yeah.
And gets into a doll. In this movie, he gets executed in a chair, and an electric chair. And then his mother's like a witch or whatever, like you said, and she somehow, I don't understand, like, okay, I'm reading way too much into this stupid ass movie.
Yeah.
But like how the amount of steps it took to bring Gary Busey to life, as the Ginger Dead Man, like if she would have dropped that seasoning off that was actually his ashes and whatever, and the guy wouldn't have cut himself, it wouldn't have happened. After he cut himself, if there wouldn't have been a sudden freak surge of electricity, it wouldn't have happened.
Yeah.
This movie would have been over in like 2 minutes.
Yeah, no, 100%. Like, Yeah, it's like a sick prank to be like, ha, I brought you gingerbread seasoning, but really you're going to be eating the ashes of my dead son. Like, yeah, that's sick. But yeah, it's probably not going to turn the cookies into anything special. Just we're bad tasting cookies.
Right. Yeah.
So, yeah, it doesn't make any sense. But let's not worry about it.
Yeah. I mean, let's not try to make this make sense, because it will not in any way.
Not a lot of killing. Well, there's killing going on, but not a lot of. You don't even see. They didn't even like show us Gary Busey's death.
No,
For a while, I was like, they didn't even show. Like the woman is dropping off the ashes, and at that point, I'm like, wait, did they kill Gary Busey? Did I miss something? But they didn't even feel like showing that part to us,
which is a loss because imagine him acting like he's being electrocuted. Like that's entertainment.
Yeah,
but they didn't do it.
Yeah. He could have done a great job acting like he's getting electrocuted.
Yeah.
And I feel so like one of the biggest things that hurt this movie too is they really didn't go for comedy very much. And they didn't even leverage the fact that you have Gary Busey, and Gary Busey doesn't even have to be funny to be funny. But somehow they took that humor out of Gary Busey, because I didn't really get that Gary Busey quirkiness at all in this
Well, that's
movie.
where I think Quigley works and this one doesn't.
Right.
Because
I would agree.
They'd go back and forth between him showing him as a human and then showing him as a dog.
Yeah.
This one, once he's gone and he's dead, he's just the gingerbread man. And he doesn't have that many lines like that.
No.
Like they didn't utilize him enough. And I think it's just one of those things where I think if I had to hypothesize about this, I would bet that they were able to afford Gary Busey, but for like a day.
Yeah.
And so they got, there wasn't that many scenes with Gary Busey there. And so I think they got it out of the way in one day, shot all those scenes with him, and then just had him sit at home and record the parts.
Sounds that they needed.
Yeah.
And I think the other part of it is too that, I mean, as far as the gingerbread man went, it wasn't terrible. So I bet you that was pretty expensive and sucked up most of the budget that they had for this movie. And they should have done a lot more of the gingerbread man, but they didn't, because I think they didn't have the budget to put him on there that much. So
I guess that's maybe the second nice thing I'll say. Like, so the creature effects, I'm probably using that loosely, but the effects there, I mean, they're done by John Carl Buechler, and Buechler had been working with Charlie Band going back to the 80s, so he knows what he's doing. Like, he probably works for cheap because he is part of that Full Moon family, but he knows what he's doing. He's actually a pretty skilled guy. And he briefly worked as a director, making one of the greatest entries in the Friday the 13th series.
It wouldn't be part 5, would it?
No, it'd be part 7.
Okay. I know part 5 gets shit on a lot, but I fucking love part 5.
I've come around on part 5 a lot.
Yeah.
I used to not like it myself, but I've really come around on it.
It's so like, yeah, well, that's a whole other
podcast.
Yeah.
Let's not tear off on that too much.
Yeah. You know, I have to say, I really enjoy movies that have a contained set. You know, like, I love movies where, you know, they're down in a bunker the whole time. Like 10 Cloverfield Lane, or The Divide is another really good movie where they're down in a one small area. And usually when a movie has a real contained set like that, it's usually a budgetary issue. And, you know, even Clerks, you know, Clerks, but they did a lot with it. You know, they were able to use what they had and really make the most out of it. This movie, like, it first of all didn't make sense for it to be a contained set.
Yeah.
Because they could have left at any time.
Yeah.
I mean, the mother got her finger fucking chopped off, and she's laying there dying or whatever, or bleeding out. The other woman, I don't know what the fuck happened to her, but she ends up in the fucking, I don't know if it was the oven. Yeah,
and then she's all covered in frosting and whatever.
She had like frosting all over her, and then cherries on her nipples.
Yeah.
Like, but clearly there's people hurt, you know, basically. And you would think that someone would. I think they tried once, like the one annoying chick, she tried to call her dad, and then her phone died. But, okay, your phone died. Well, walk to a fucking payphone. I think this was back when they had payphones. Or walk to someone. Walk somewhere. Get the fuck out of there.
Yeah.
You got a fucking ginger dead man running around. Keebler Elf, whatever. They fucking...
Ginger dead man.
The Killsbury Doughboy.
The Killsbury Doughboy.
Yeah, and he's running around killing you. Like, why wouldn't you leave and find help?
I don't know if you remember this part of the movie, but I think they tried to kind of cover their asses with that by the one girl, the one that was like Miss Waco or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
When she got killed, they said, "Oh, he's got all the doors booby trapped."
Yeah, they did add that in.
So at one point in time. So I think that was supposed to be the justification for them not being able to leave.
Mm-hmm.
But still, I mean, the one guy walked out to his car, got a gun, and came back in.
Yeah.
At that point, they could have walked out, gotten in his car, and driven away, and the movie would have been over. You know.
Mm-hmm.
So
so I'm gonna jump off of your like one room set thing,
mm-hmm.
and your examples are great. I mean, like 10 Cloverfield, fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, there's like the classics, like The Thing and stuff like that. But like to make those work, sometimes it's probably a budget reason that they do it.
Yeah.
But once you're down to the one room set, you have to rely so heavily on your tension, on your actors playing off of each other.
Yeah.
Because if you don't give the audience something to like really get them to care about those characters, it's boring as hell.
Yeah.
And this movie fails so hard in that regard because I don't care about any of these characters.
Right.
And the acting is just god awful. Like,
yes, it is.
It's really bad. And Robin Sidney, the star of this movie, she's got a great look. I mean, I can see why she's the main actress.
Yeah.
But her acting in this movie is awful. And strangely, she's not the worst actor in this. Like, they find a way to make her acting look passable by finding worse actors.
Yeah.
And it's bad. Like, it's even for Full Moon, it's bad. Mm-hmm. So, like, I don't know what was going on here. And yet, despite this movie, some people like this movie.
Well, I think I think we talked about this on another podcast, actually, but I think there's a whole generation of people that kind of came along after the Empire days, and their first kind of exposure to Full Moon movies was Ginger Dead Man.
Yeah.
And that's kind of sad. I feel bad because this was, you and I talked about this, Gav, in one of the previous episodes where this was the movie that kind of marks it for us, where like Charlie Band really went downhill. Yeah. And I think going into this the first time, I had really high expectations for this because I've seen so many movies that they lived up to the expectation that I had going into it. This one, I had a lot of expectations going into it, and it did not deliver on any of them. You don't see kills.
Right.
You don't see, yes, they kind of make a few comments like the Killsbury Doughboy and the Keebler Elf thing. There's a few bits of dialogue that are funny.
But poorly delivered.
Poorly delivered, and there's, like, it just felt like they were trying to fill air while they're in this contained set, and they didn't really do a good job of it.
Right. Yeah. No, I agree. I don't remember if we did that, if we had that conversation in an episode or where we had that conversation. But yes, I agree 100%. This to me, and then maybe there's a movie earlier, but this is the movie that really stood out for me as the point that Full Moon and Charlie Band specifically just stopped caring.
Yeah.
Like he was always cheap, but this was the point where he's like, as long as I can turn a profit, I'll pump stuff out as fast as I can, and it doesn't have to be good. It just has to turn a profit.
Yeah.
And this movie's not good. Like, there's nothing good about it. But I guarantee you it turned a profit because all he had to do was slap the star, I don't mean Robin Sidney, the other star, slap the star's name on the cover, and people will be like, oh, that'll be good.
Gary Busey.
Yeah, and then it's like, make your money back. Yeah,
and you can tell he made a profit because he wouldn't have made like 4 other Ginger Dead movies afterwards. Which I've not, I've not seen any of them except for this first one. I may have seen Passion of the Crust at some point.
I'm pretty sure I saw Passion of the Crust, but I don't remember it.
Yeah, that's same here.
Yeah, like it's just bad because at this point, like he's pretty much making this Evil Bong movies, which are not good. And I know that they have their fans, but they're not good. And the occasional Killjoy movie, which I guess is maybe the least worst of the 3, but still not good. I couldn't honestly tell you the last good full moon movie. It hasn't been in 20 years.
I after this movie came out, I think was the end for me of giving a shit about Full Moon.
Yeah.
I mean, I still love the old Empire movies. You know more about the switch between it's complicated when it comes to Full Moon because it's been under different names, and like Gav, you were just saying that he would buy the rights to movies or give other people who are a little bit more
well, it's not so much that he was buying the rights, but just
he was funding it.
Yeah, he would kind of pitch like the first like really big Empire movie would be like Reanimator. And Stuart Gordon was already making Reanimator, and Charlie Band stepped in as a producer, but kind of like after the fact. They already had it cast and written and everything else. Like the movie was ready to go. So my understanding is that other than throw in some money towards the end just to kind of get it across the finish line, Charlie had nothing to do with that movie.
Sure.
And that's what worked well. Is Stuart Gordon is the best example because his movies with Charlie Band are all great, and they're great because Charlie Band didn't frickin' touch them. And then, but even like the Subspecies movies, like those are pretty decent.
Yeah, they are. Honestly, I think Subspecies is the best vampire of most movies. Like I don't want to say he's the best of the best. What's his name?
Who?
The vampire.
Radu?
I always get it confused with spaghetti sauce. I'm like, is it ragu or? Yeah. But other than the silly name, the look. They nailed the look. It's got a very Nosferatu look to that vampire, and but also like kind of unique on its own. And like I don't remember how good the later films are because they made quite a few of the Subspecies movies.
Yeah, and there's a new one now too.
Is there?
Yeah. Yeah.
I wonder if they got the same actor who played Ragu.
I do not know.
Yeah, but those ones, those were pretty good, and but yeah, like at some point, I think it really for me when Ginger Dead Man came out, this movie just kind of sorry, I'm out.
Yeah, and that's I'll even step back a moment and do like a broader thing because I don't think when we did Head of the Family or Head of the Household, whatever it's called,
Head of Household,
like I don't think we really talked about Full Moon in general very much. I don't remember. Maybe we did, but like so. Here's how it works.
We've talked about Charlie Band. We haven't really talked about Full Moon. So.
Okay, so I'm gonna give you like the super fast breakdown of this. So originally, there's a guy named Albert Band, and Albert Band is a good filmmaker. He worked with some classic Hollywood people. And he made a handful of movies himself, which are decent. He made like I Bury the Living, which I think was a fantastic movie, really good movie. But that dumb bastard, decided to have children, and he had a son named Charlie Band. And when Charlie started out, I think Charlie started out okay. His earliest stuff is fine. He made a movie called Crash, which I really like. He made Fairy Tales, which I really like.
Fairy Tales is fun.
Yeah. And then he moves on from that into Empire, which is like at this point like he's flush with cash. Like He buys like the Italian castle, and he buys like a former studio of Dino De Laurentiis. Like, so he's like, I'm going all out, and he's like, we're gonna make these great movies. And so for a few years, they're freaking fantastic. And then I don't know the details of what happened, but everything collapsed. It just collapsed. Like they went under. Empire was gone. He rebirths it as Full Moon. And at that point, it's pretty much straight to video. Like, at that point, nothing's going to the theater anymore. And that's when it goes to being cheap. When he's like, I'm not going to go bankrupt again. I'm going to make everything cheap now. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it works.
Yeah.
This is now we're in the time period with Head of the Family. And Head of the Family, not a good movie, but it's entertaining. Like, this is back in the era for us, you know, where you'd go and you'd rent a movie just kind of blind, walk into the video store, rent a movie blind. It's good enough to pass an hour, hour and a half.
Yeah.
So that's fine. And that's what Full Moon was at that point, was like, you knew you were getting garbage, but it was at least entertaining garbage.
Right. So at Puppet Master, that would clearly be under the Full Moon.
That was right around the turn. I would say once Empire collapsed, Puppet Master was like the big thing that kicked off Full Moon.
Yeah.
And Puppet Master's crap.
It really is. Going back, I tried to watch it, and I think I turned it off 3/4 of the way through. It's boring as shit.
It is, and that's the weird thing, because I remember, I mean, it was probably you. I don't remember anymore. It was probably you, but I remember having like mini marathons, being like, oh, we're gonna watch like 3 Puppet Master movies, and I enjoyed doing that. And then later, I went back and I watched the original Puppet Master, and like, nothing freaking happens in that movie. Like, half of it is just people sitting around a dinner table, like having conversation that has nothing to do with anything.
Right.
It's terrible. It's not a good movie, and yet they made like 10 or 11 of these things.
Yeah. The only thing I can say about the Puppet Master movies is the puppets are awesome.
The puppets are cool.
And I thought they were really creative with the puppets. Like even just the original ones were great, but then they expanded on them. I think they get kind of stupid after a while when you get to the later movies, but the first few movies, even like they introduced Six Shooter. Six Shooter was cool. What did they have in the later ones?
I don't know, but there's some fun. There's Leech Woman.
Leech Woman was one of the originals.
There's Blade.
Blade is one of the originals also, and he is my favorite. But,
yeah, so there's some cool dolls.
And the merch, man. Yeah. I remember when I was a kid seeing. So, for those of you out there who didn't grow up with Full Moon in the 80s, in the younger crowd, I guess, they used to, when you'd rent a VHS and it was a Full Moon movie, at the beginning of the movie, before the movie would start, it would say, stay tuned after the movie or whatever for a special whatever. So after the movie would be over, it would kind of give you a behind the scenes look at how the movie was made a little bit. And I think, if I'm remembering correctly, but it would also talk about the puppets and how you could order them.
Oh, that's cool.
You could actually buy like full scale puppets from the movie. And I mean, they were expensive and I never got one, but I always wanted one really bad, especially the Blade one. That would have been the best Christmas present ever at that age for me. I never got it though, because it was
Jason's parents failed.
Yeah.
I almost wonder if...
But that was part of the charm of renting those movies, though, too. Is just like, it was something you never saw, when you watch, what's a good example of a movie now? I don't know, but they don't give you the opportunity to buy and have your own. Like, it'd be like if Nightmare on Elm Street, you could buy a Freddy glove at the end.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
That'd be awesome. They didn't do that with Nightmare on Elm Street, but Full Moon, I think, going back to what you were saying about how cheaply they're made, it was one way for them to make their money, to capitalize as much as possible on these movies that didn't cost much to make.
Yeah. So that was like my big overview. Just to step back for a second. That was my big overview of like the broad history there, and that there may be some things that like Charlie would disagree with about some of that. That's just my perspective. He might have tell a different version of the story, but that's my understanding of how things went. And I mean, he's got to know. He's got to know he's a cheap bastard. Like, he can't pretend he's not, right?
Right. No, I don't think he has any illusions about.
Okay.
It sounds to me like what he did. He started out as a filmmaker, and by the end, he was just a businessman.
Yeah.
So he was just figuring out, okay, how can I make as many? Like, I think one of you have actually said this exact thing. How can I make as many movies as possible and make money on all the movies, and I don't give a shit what's on them.
And I think what he did was he would throw shit against the wall and see what would stick. Like, so you got the Puppet Master movies, right?
Yeah.
But then later on, he came out with Dolls, right? Or is that
You're talking about? You're not talking about Dolls. You're talking about Demonic Toys.
Or Demonic Toys. That's what I'm thinking of. Demonic Toys. And then it was Puppet Master versus Demonic Toys.
Yeah.
And it's like you're making the same movie over and over and over again, and just
But he can make money off of it.
But he can make
So I mean, you can see why he did it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think the profit motive at some point just kind of killed it.
Yeah, I agree.
The creativity,
and I didn't know him in the 80s. Not that I know him now, but I've met him a few times. He does a lot of shows, and the guy he doesn't try to hide it. Like, he's a huckster. Like, I don't even mean that as like an insult. Like, that's just what he is. He's pitching you something, and he's selling you on the pitch. Like, and he knows that the pitch doesn't necessarily match up with what the product is.
Right.
So he actively like runs his own booth at conventions, which, good on him for doing that. That's cool, because then you can walk up and meet Charlie, and that's nice. But he's going to promote stuff in a very not accurate way.
You want to give me an example of that? Because I know you've had that happen with him, right? Like, you went up to his table and he tried to sell you things, right?
Well, so at the road show, like, you know the road show.
Yep.
And we're not going to talk about the road show.
No, we've talked about it before on the podcast.
Yeah. But yeah, like, the one that I went to, they had a limited edition DVD box set. And I don't know how many of these sets they made or whatever. And I got one. And I didn't care that it was limited edition. It was just a decent price. But I was absolutely convinced that was a lie. And I'm still convinced that was a lie. I don't believe for a second that those numbers were like that. We've talked off the air about how when he first came out with his DVDs, he just transferred the Laserdisc to DVD with the switch sides right in the middle of the movie, which is like, he didn't even try to hide it.
Yeah.
And now that he's got the Blu-rays, are not like 4K quality. I'm fairly convinced that he's just copying the DVD transfer to a Blu-ray without doing a new scan. So he can charge you like the extra $5 for the Blu-ray when you're getting the identical movie you already have.
Right.
So there's that. But yeah, like, he'll just do things like the last time he came through, his autobiography came out.
He has an autobiography?
He does.
Oh, I bet that's interesting.
It's called Confessions of a Puppet Master.
Ah.
And his thing was, if you purchased it on Amazon, it was at pre-order at the time. If you purchased it on Amazon and then you showed him your phone saying that you had just purchased it, you could get 3 DVDs. And so this is the thing, like, the DVDs, like, they're cheap as hell. Like, I mean, he prints them off, they probably cost him $1 a piece to make. But the whole trick here is he wants, on day one, he wants his book to be the number one book. So he's giving you this cheap thing that costs him nothing to make to artificially inflate the popularity of his book. Like,
it's kind of like the politicians that write books, and then they just purchase like 20,000 of them and set them in a warehouse somewhere so that it can look like they sold a bunch of copies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, like, I don't know if that's the best example, but just like, if you pay attention to like how he's selling things, there's always some reason that he's doing it the way he's doing it. Sure. Like, it's not just like, hey, I'm going to make $1 off of this. It's like, how can I self-promote in the process? And I don't fault him for that. Like he knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
And obviously Full Moon has a brand. Like any other company, like today, like the great movie company for horror and whatever, strange movies is A24.
Yeah.
But A24 doesn't necessarily have like you watch something, you're like, oh, this is an A24 movie. Sometimes you can tell, but most of the time you probably can't really tell.
No.
But a full moon movie, you know what you're getting.
Right.
So, like, I'll give him credit for that. I think it's crap, but at least he's clearly made his brand.
Yeah. I think at the A24, it's more, there's not really a particular style to their movies. It's just, it's kind of like a seal of quality.
Right.
You know, at this point, like, oh, it's an A24 movie. That has a good chance of being a decent film.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that reminds me of a great joke.
I got a joke I came up with the other day. You guys want to hear it?
Can I tell you?
Yeah, you can tell you.
Okay. So we're all over the place with this episode. Eric's just silent the whole time. Jason.
Yeah.
Do you remember back when you had your condo and we'd regularly watch movies?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it started out that like a movie would come on and like the Lionsgate logo would come up. And we'd be like, ooh, a Lionsgate movie, this is going to be good. And then it evolved into like a joke because at one point Lionsgate just started releasing everything. And so it's like, ooh, Lionsgate, this is going to be good. But towards the end, like it meant like, oh no.
Nice. I don't remember this, but
I know, I can tell you for a fact, we did that many times.
That's awesome.
And that's the thing, like Lionsgate, when they started out as a company, they released some great stuff, and later they're just kind of whatever.
Right.
You could probably say that for a lot of companies, probably Anchor Bay, same thing. But I only say that because, like, right now, A24 is damn near 100% perfect. I mean, there's maybe one or two that aren't as good, but pretty damn good overall.
Yeah.
That's got to water down eventually, right?
I don't think there's a company so far that I've ever heard of that it didn't eventually. You know, I mean, look at even the Hammer films. Like it went away, and then they try to bring it back. You know, I think they only made like two or three movies that I know of that were under that Hammer banner, and they all sucked.
The one that like when it came back in the last like maybe 10 years.
Yeah. You know what I'm talking about? They brought it back, and then it just didn't really. Like, I don't think they're still doing it.
I don't know if they are or they aren't, but yeah, they tried to capitalize on that brand, but it clearly wasn't aimed at the people who liked the old brand. So.
Well, and I think what happens is, you know, these are companies, these are like, there's people involved. And as time goes on, those people are going to change, you know, like people are going to get older or move on or whatever. And so the creative force behind them is going to be different. And then, you know.
Oh, sure. Well, nobody from the old Hammer is still alive.
Right. Yeah. I, you know, as far as though, what the hell were we just talking about?
I don't know.
Talking about how the Hammer movies sucked.
No, I was using that as a reference for something else.
Well, the Hammer movies do suck.
Well, we were just talking about how, like you said, how movies get watered down. And I think that's
A24 is what I'm saying.
Yeah,
I think that'll
suck too.
A24, that's what probably eventually will happen, you know?
Yeah.
Probably because I would assume, I mean, when it all comes down to it, they're in the business of publishing movies. So eventually the pressure is going to be put on them to publish movies, more movies than they're publishing. And as you do that, your bar for how good the movie has to be just continues to drop and drop and drop.
Well,
so far, so good, though.
Yeah, and I mean, it might end up being a budgetary issue, too. It might be like, oh, we need to be cranking out more to make money or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know how these companies like Empire, like, go out of business. I mean, once you have, like, you know, a solid, you know, catalog of movies, like, like how does it? Because
they become so riddled with
do they just do stupid stuff
with
their money?
They're just so riddled with that at a certain point it just fizzles out.
Yeah, I don't know the details on that, but my guess would be that they just overextended themselves.
So that's a total
because they were buying up properties all over the place that they probably shouldn't.
What happens is you get this really strong brand, so then you just start throwing everything on it because you know you're going to sell it, and then people say, well, now this brand fucking sucks. And then they stop watching them, and now they're screwed. They just killed what they had going for them. All right, I want to go back because if you guys remember, like 20 minutes ago, we were talking about a movie.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
shit.
So I want to go back to that movie.
Was it Ginger Dead Man?
Yes.
Oh.
Yes.
Or Ginger Dead Man?
But both of you have such a man crush on Charlie Band, and your hatred for Charlie Band runs so deep that we can't get off the Charlie Band.
I do love talking about Charlie Band. I'm not gonna lie.
Maybe we should make the Charlie Band podcast, and you guys can just go off.
He's a fascinating character.
He's a fascinating character, and you know,
we're going back on Charlie Band. Shut up.
Oh, okay.
No, this movie, it was not good.
No.
But I felt like the fundamentals were there to make a good movie. Mm-hmm. Would you guys agree with that? Like, yeah. And head of the family.
Depending on what the fundamentals are.
Head of the family was so fucking slow and so boring. And this movie didn't have that. This movie paced pretty well probably because it was like 40 minutes long after you took all the credits out of it. But I'm curious if you guys have an opinion on. I feel like it wasn't that far away from being good, but there was a lot of things missing. So what does it take to make this movie not suck?
That's a good question. What do you think, Kev?
Well, for me, first and foremost, better writing. Mm-hmm. Because when the majority of your movie is people sitting in a room talking about nothing, like, at least make it so they're talking about something, so we don't notice that they're talking about nothing.
So
there's that. But
would have for really, really good kill scenes have compensated.
That's what I was going to say.
I don't know if it would have compensated, but it wouldn't hurt.
Okay.
I mean, I think it would depend on, like, if the level of, like, the special effects, if they would have added some good, really good, funny gore scenes, and maybe played off of the fact that he's a ginger dead man.
Yeah.
You know, like, somehow incorporate that into how he's killing it. Instead, he's shooting a gun. Or, you know, he set a booby trap with a knife that goes into a girl's head.
Yeah.
Like, if they could do something that, you know, and, like, I can't think of anything on the top of my head, but if they could do something like that and make the scenes really good, where they, you know, limbs are flying and blood and whatever, I don't think the writing matters too much. When you're going into a movie called Ginger Dead Man,
you're not expecting good writing.
You're not expecting good writing. But what I think Gavin was getting at is, like, when he says good writing, like, better lines.
Yeah.
Better,
that would help.
Better one-liners. Better, like, you know, just like, instead of it feeling like a chore, like it almost feels like when these people are interacting that it's just a chore.
Yeah.
Like they're getting through it.
And also some consistency, because maybe I'm wrong here. Like, I didn't give this movie 100% of my attention to detail, but I felt like at one point they had said it was like 1 year since her brother died, and at another point they said it was like 2 years since he had been executed. Yeah. But then another time it was like he was executed 2 days ago.
Yeah,
and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I misunderstood or misheard something, but that's what I thought I heard, was that, like, nobody seemed to have a clear concept of when anything was happening.
Yeah, that one I don't know.
And it might have just been the way that it was, the way that it was shown to us, because I was confused too, like, what was going on, like the relationship between the main characters and Gary Busey's character. It didn't set with me for quite a while.
Yeah.
I felt like there was a couple scenes in this movie where they were trying to make that scene that was memorable. And the one that really jumps out at me is they had something when the ginger dead man drove the car and was using the like, I don't even know what it's called, but the roller thing as so he could get the gas. And I felt like that could have been a very funny scene. Yeah. Had it been done right, and they just failed miserably on it. And there was another scene too, and I'm trying to think what it was, but like couple scenes like that, if they had done those right, this movie would be infinitely better. And if they would have done a better job, and this kind of goes to your dialogue thing, where they could have made the ginger dead man just, I mean, you're getting chased around by a killer ginger dead man. You're set up for comedy right there.
Yeah,
they should have done something with that.
They didn't lean into the comedy nearly enough.
I mean, literally off the top of my head, as you're talking, I'm thinking maybe they could have killed him by dunking him in milk.
Yeah.
Drown him in some milk.
Yeah, he dissolves in milk.
There you go. That makes sense. That's good.
And the way they killed the ginger dead man at the end was just creepy and weird. Whereas they could have made that funny too, and that might have made the movie infinitely better.
Yeah.
But I was like, the kid just goes down there and starts eating it, and I'm like, what?
Yeah.
And then the whole now the kid is Gary Busey thing, that was they should have kind of weird. That should have never happened.
And then he kind of looked like a deadite, and then he said, "Give me some sugar."
Yeah.
Which is clearly reference.
Yeah. They must have known what they were doing there.
Mm-hmm.
And going back to the kills, I mean, they're bad.
Yeah,
and
they're almost non-existent.
And this is like ultra low effort because the mother gets her finger cut off, which is not a kill, but she gets her finger cut off. Now we don't see the actual cutting of the finger, and then after happens, we see he just cut her finger off. Like, we know what happens if we didn't actually see it. She's just holding her hand.
Mm-hmm.
At no point do we ever actually see her hand with no finger.
Right.
So this is the most cheap possible way of doing it.
Yeah.
Is you don't show any effect of a finger being cut or a finger being missing. We could do that.
And
we have no filmmaking skills, but we could do that.
Yeah. And honestly, I know you were saying that you kind of praised whoever it was that did the Ginger Dead Man, as that he's good at special effects.
He's decent at special effects.
Okay, I'm not. That's one of the gripes I have with this movie too. Is the Ginger Dead Man himself just looked kind of stupid to me.
Oh, see, and I thought they did an alright job.
He looks like a fucking puppet to me, like a sock puppet. Even his mouth, even the way his mouth is kind of like if you stuck your hand into a
I guess I could
and you
see
go like
that.
this, the mouth kind of curves in, that's what it looked like to me. Like you're just and that just doesn't do it for me.
See, and
I would have rather seen
I just
something.
felt like it could have been a lot worse.
Yeah,
that's the way I felt about it. I'm not gonna say it was good, but it could have been a lot cheesier. And actually, maybe if it was cheesier, the movie would have been better because that would have added a little element of comedy into it.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I think the biggest thing is this, man, how underutilized they did not use Gary Busey to the abilities that they could have. And even if they only had him for a short amount of time, Gary Busey could have turned that Ginger Dead Man into a hilarious character, and he didn't.
Absolutely.
Heck yeah.
Mm-hmm. So what do you guys think if we do ratings on this one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gavin's over there looking something up.
I was just looking up John Carl Winkler because you're crapping on him. And I would like you to know that he did the makeup and special effects for Terror Vision.
Ooh, oh, really?
Yes.
Holy shit, that movie has really good practical effects.
So
the monsters in that movie are great.
I could give you a whole list, but I'm going to just throw that one at you.
Yeah. Because I love that one.
Yeah, but okay, ratings.
Yeah.
I'll start because I don't think I've started in a while. So I think this movie is watchable. It's not good, but at least it's fast paced and it's short. Mm-hmm. So when it got done, I was like, wow, we're already done. That was a good thing. But because they failed on just about every level, I feel like in this movie, I'm going to give it a 3.25.
Okay.
You want me to go next, Gab?
Sure.
Okay. So I second that, everything you just said. I am going to say that it wouldn't have taken that much more to make this a good movie.
And see, I agree with that too.
And just the fact that they came close, I'm going to give it a 3.9 because it's not an enjoyable movie. It's not, you go into it and it's a gingerbread man who kills people. I'm expecting something hilarious. I'm expecting something really fun. And I think it didn't quite meet that. I think they cheaped out in too many ways. and they didn't show any of the kills, which wouldn't have. I mean, if you got the guy who did Terror Vision, who can do creature effects, you can't tell me that they couldn't have shown the bloody stump of a finger where the finger was, or they couldn't have shown a little bit more of the gore and stuff like that. That people are, I mean, when you watch a movie like this, it's what you want to see.
And even if it would have been cheesy as hell, it would have added something to the movie.
Yeah,
where it just fell short everywhere.
Yeah, it fell short, but I don't think it would have taken that much more. Like, because I feel like the solutions are obvious. That if they would have just added some little bit better dialogue, like Gavin said, if they would have added a little better kill scenes, like I said, if they would have, maybe cut down on the opening credits and the closing credits and added a little bit more meat to that, a movie, would have been better. So that's mine. Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you got, Gavin?
I feel like I'm going way too high with this rating. But I'm going to give it a 1.9.
Oh,
wow. So Gavin is very unhappy with it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And this was the movie he picked out.
Well, I didn't pick it up because I liked it.
Shit.
I picked it up because it
you
followed up Quigley. Now, I don't want to pick movies that are this bad. That's not my goal.
Yeah.
But it was the perfect pairing.
This is like hate watching something.
Oh, yeah. No,
like when you're mad at your girlfriend or something and you just bang one out.
Yeah,
like,
sure.
I don't know. Maybe that doesn't work as an analogy. I don't know.
I'm curious, Gavin. So do you think there's anything that can save this movie, or do you think this movie was just so bad that there's, I mean...
If somebody did a reimagining of Ginger Dead Man, starting over everything from scratch, keeping nothing except maybe the same main actor, maybe.
It depends if she can act or not.
No, not her.
Gary Busey, man.
Oh, Gary Busey. Okay. Sorry.
Like that's it. I think the writing is bad. I think the effects were and I like the Ginger Dead Man, but beyond that, I'm not impressed.
Yeah.
There was nothing really directing camera work. There was nothing to speak of. It was just like pointing at people in a room and nothing fancy there. There's nothing going on in this movie. Like it's dumb.
Yeah, it's like Monstered.
It's like Monstered.
I mean, I'm gonna say the word monstered as much as I'm gonna work it into the podcast if I can.
Yeah. But I'm glad you guys were able to give it a solid 3.5. But I don't agree. I just don't think that this movie could be saved. I think you'd have to start over, and that's all you could do to make this anything worthwhile.
It's fair.
So, well, that's interesting because I do tend to disagree with you on that. I don't think it fully needs to be scrapped, but yeah, it does need a lot of work.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Well, this might be the only time that I'm ever going to have the lowest rating, but I'm gonna crap on this one.
Yeah.
I don't think you'll probably ever rate a movie that low again either.
It's pretty rare.
Because what do you know what your lowest rating prior to this has been? Like in a ballpark? Have you gone below 3?
I don't
probably
think
not.
So I had a question for you, Gavin. You're on that Letterboxd thing.
Yeah.
Right? So what did you give this movie on Letterboxd when you previously watched it? Yeah.
1, which is the equivalent of a 2 in IMDb.
Okay.
So he upped it this time, right?
Yeah.
No, I downed it. I went from 2 down to 1.9.
Oh, I see what you're saying. You're doing a IMDb rating here. Gotcha. So, all right. So, does anybody remember what the next movie is?
It's your pick, I think. You wanted to go with Terra Firma, didn't you?
Yeah, that's what our next movie is.
Yeah, okay.
Which I don't own anymore, but I think it's on Tubi.
We'll have to figure that out. But as long as we can find Terra Firma, that'll be on next week's.
And that's a trauma movie.
In 2 weeks.
That'll be our first foray into trauma, I think. Right?
I think so.
Yeah.
So, expect on that podcast that we're going to talk 5 minutes about the movie and then they're just going to talk about Lloyd Kaufman for the whole time.
No, we'll start talking about Lloyd Kaufman and then I'll make a comparison to Charlie Band as independent
and then
actors.
we'll go back to Charlie.
And then we'll just talk about Charlie Band for an hour.
I have opinions about Lloyd Kaufman, but he doesn't. I don't have any dislike for him.
I don't either.
Do you guys, I
respect him.
We can now that we've covered the full movie, if you would like, you can turn the podcast back around and you can have more conversation about Charlie Band before we wrap it up.
So Jason can't see the laptop, but I can see the laptop, so I can tell you we're nearing an hour.
Holy shit. How did we spend an hour? Well, because we didn't really talk about that.
Because you talked about Charlie Band for 45 minutes.
I don't feel we need to continue that.
Maybe we need to start another podcast where we just talk shit about Charlie Band.
That's what I'm saying, the Charlie Band podcast.
Yeah.
I bet you it'd be a big hit. So.
Yeah,
probably.
So, all right, with that, we will wrap this episode up. We'll be back in 2 weeks with Terra Firma. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in.
Thanks for tuning in to Hobbs and Horror Movie Review Podcast. Join us in 2 weeks for another exciting movie review.